Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
I've spent the last couple of days in northern Victoria and southern New South Wales. And
How did you go, Neil?
One of the great delights was sitting having a cool drink on a warm evening with a chap called Michael Hughes, who is on the line. G'day, Michael.
G'day, Neil. How are you, mate?
Doing very well indeed. Thank you. The other voice you'll hear is, of course, Rob. You've already chatted to him off air. First of all, how good was it to catch up over a couple of cool drinks with Barnsey and Essendon, not that Barnsey, a different Barnsey, and Essendon Premiership player Steve Carey the other night?
Yeah, it was fantastic, wasn't he? He was very generous with his time, had some great stories.
Yeah.
I must drag him up to Pretty Pine one day and share him with the local audience up here, I think.
I reckon he wouldn't mind. As long as there was a game of golf and a glass of beer, I reckon he'd be in it. Rob has been pestering me. You're going to have to tell the audience where we'll find Pretty Pine and why is the pine so pretty? That's the other question, of course.
Pretty Pine's located about 20 k's north of Deniliquin, and Deniliquin's about 85 k's north of Echuca into New South Wales. And I said to Robert earlier, I'm not sure about the old myth of the pretty pine, but you'd probably struggle to find a pine tree there at the moment. But in the old days, it was originally a Cobb & Co. Pub built, which were all approximately 10 miles apart. So that's the original history, built in about 1860.
Oh, Rob remembers the opening. And of course, if we ever get lucky Star to perform at the Pretty Pine Hotel, he could drop Proserpine out and put Pretty Pine in, couldn't he? Because it fits.
Easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're smack bang in the middle of a bit of wool, lamb, wheat, canola,
Cotton.
and other cotton. Cotton even at Pretty Pine.
Yeah, there is a little bit of cotton heading south. So we're pretty much a dominated irrigation district. So irrigation's pretty much what drives everything here. As you head north, you get into the pastoral country towards hay, but predominantly around Pretty Pine irrigation. So mixed irrigation, yeah, like you say, all the oil seeds, wheat, barley, bit of rice, bit of cotton, bit of corn, all of the above.
Now, I'm going to tiptoe into very dangerous ground here. We've noticed down here in my lifetime, which is a long one, but the change of agriculture due to what I believe is a change of the climate in which we live. Up there, are farmers in your neck of the woods talking climate change, or is it business as usual?
Look, it's not something that's sort of openly discussed too much, but I think it is something that sits front and centre for a lot of people's decision making. Agriculture in this part of the world has changed quite significantly over the last 10 or 15 years. A little bit because of probably a variable climate, a little bit because of politics and some water reform. But I think climate change should be a good thinking point for everyone and be a part of their risk strategy.
Yeah, the reason I said about the cotton coming south, I'm not quite sure whether it's coming down south because it can't be grown up north or whether it's just chasing water.
Probably more chasing water reliability. The water reliability up north is quite volatile, although ours is reasonably volatile here. But we have a very connected system and we have a fairly strong market, so people are able to buy water pretty much when they want, just the economics have to stack up.
So it's fair to say, we can say this, I think, on the wireless. Michael, you and I were at the Irrigated Cropping Council of conference, and there were a lot of discussions around technology, but also things like succession planning and all that kind of stuff as well. So it wasn't just about, making water come out of pipes. It was actually a really interesting conversation. What was the big takeaway from your perspective around, the future of irrigation?
I think the future of irrigation is very strong. I think it's an essential part of the agricultural landscape, particularly where I live. So. And as droughts and as climate change probably approaches and we have a more variable climate, it'll put a greater emphasis on irrigation and producing food and fodder in years where the climate wouldn't normally allow it to occur. So,
one of the great things about your industry that fascinates me is the use of water, how it's more cleverly used, how a small amount can make a big difference, and chasing the right type of product for that. So I suppose is something like rice growing going to be in danger with the water world chasing more cotton?
Potentially it is, but rice will always have a fit. Rice is a very good product. It's very efficient, and it's very easy to switch on and off from rice. So I think what we will find is probably greater volatility in the production. We'll have years where there's a bit of an abundance of water like we are at the moment. The river's basically in flood and probably will be in flood for the next 3 or 4 months. So there'll be quite a lot of rice growing through the riverina this year, but then as the seasons change and water becomes a little bit more scarce, then rice is probably one of the first things to drop off.
There's been some amazing changes in technology about growing almonds, particularly around the Robin Vale, Mildura area, and the use of water more strategically, smart use of it to get better results for less water. So I suppose that sort of technology is the stuff that farmers are going to be really looking out for from the great scientists of the industry.
Oh, absolutely. The options and availability of technology going forward over the next 10 years is pretty exciting. And I think we're only going to be limited by our imagination what potentially will be available to the suite of tools that we have access to in the next 10 or 15 years. It's quite exciting, actually.
I think one of the great things too that I noticed having the opportunity to stand on stage and look at the audience was we had guys there who were, in their 60s and 70s, and we had people there in their 20s. And I think that was really good as well. You're getting the mix of wisdom coming from the older folk, and yet you've got the young guys coming through, young ladies as well coming through with the technology and the skills that they've learned in Ag College.
Oh, absolutely. And it's always really good to have the older part in the audience, just so they give a bit of perspective to the change that they've witnessed and implemented in their farming systems over the last 20 or 30 years. So.
And it also makes the MC look younger.
Which is quite important, isn't it, Neil?
Well, it's an achievement, if nothing else.
Michael, a very large part of our listening demographic are grey nomads. We've got a lot of caravanners listen to the show, and they drive all over the countryside. Tell them why they should go to Pretty Pine.
Well, first and foremost, you'll be very welcome to call into the Pretty Pine. There's actually free camping at the Pine, so if anybody's going past, they're more than welcome to call in and say hello to our local publicans, Denise and Twang. They're great hosts. Denise is a wonderful cook, so you'll get a great feed. The beer's always cold, and there's always a tall yarn, very likely to be based loosely around the truth, but it will always give you a good laugh.
Rob thought when you said free camping, he got as far as free and he thought you was going to say cans. He was so disappointed when you went with camping, but that's okay.
No, actually, you've ticked most boxes for campers. Somewhere to go that's free, cold beer, good tucker, and conversation. Yep. What else do you need?
Not a lot more. There's it's a very popular place. It'd be rare that you'd ever call in and be the only people there. So it is. It's proving to be a great stopping point for a lot of people, and you get a great mix of tourists and locals mixing through there, and it would be a great fishing region too. So we get a lot of fishermen.
Yeah, so good. We'll talk to Digi about that next week. And whilst there mightn't be, there might be a crowd when Rob gets there. Not for long.
Not for long.
No, they generally get up and leave.
Now, serious question, Michael. If they were to use that free camping site as a base for a few days, little day trips out, you obviously go back to Deniliquin, maybe even back to Echuca, but what else is there either north, south, east or west of Pretty Pine that a day trip could be worth it?
So you can travel north from the Pretty Pine along the travelling stock route, which is the old original Cobb and Co Path, and there's a number of milestones and attractions along the way, little villages at Wanganella and Barubin, always worth to call in and say hello and have a beer. And then you can head, the river approximately runs east-west from the Pretty Pine, so not far down the road there's the Wirrai State Forest, which is a very popular camping and fishing ground. There's a little bit of hunting that occurs around here, or you can go back into town itself, into Deniliquin. So Deniliquin's based on the river, and there's some beautiful stretches of river in town.
And there's a very nice pub with those very, very nice steaks.
Beautiful. Wanganella, name of a very famous merino stud. So being a lover of the wool industry, is it still a huge part of the agricultural landscape up there?
Yes, definitely. So as you head north, you get sort of Wanganella's on the Billabong, and that's the start of the pastoral country, and there's a number of, so it's very much dominated by sheep and the wool industry, from there right through to hay, and then pushing right up into the northern riverina, and a lot of the old studs are still very active and very dominant in the industry.
Yeah, good to see. Very much part of Australia's history.
Exactly.
Well, we need to get going and let you go back and do whatever you were doing before we interrupted you. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. I just want to say you're going to maximise the yield per hectare through the correct application of nitrogen-based fertilisers and the correct application of irrigated waters. See, I listened.
Well done, Neil. I'm very surprised and actually quite impressed. You've outdone me.
And I've got no idea what any of that means, but I picked up something while I was there.
I was going to say, you've got a career in journalism.
Thanks, Michael. Michael Hughes up at Pretty Palm.
Thanks, Michael. All the best.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Robert. Good to have a chat, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. Bye.